after everything that's been said about Drizzle and Drought potentially being way too good for the overused metagame, well, it appears that the people who said, just wait for a little while, see what happens, because it looks like they're just going to be part of the metagame and we're just going to have to deal with them. Well, those people in the end were absolutely right. Because guess what? Well, as I said, I'm going to talk about the usage stats from Smogon today, and in the end, Politoed and Ninetales had more than disappointing results. Well, to be fair, when it comes to Politoed, it probably has a lot to do with the combo ban, because had the Swift Swimmers still been allowed in combination with Politoed, Politoed would probably been number 1, or at the very least number 2 behind Ferrothorn. But as it turns out, Politoed ended up being ranked number 13, and Ninetales was number 26. Well, so much for Drizzle and Drought being absolutely broken, and this also shows that the combo ban is serving its purpose quite well, because Politoed being at number 12 indicates that even without Swift Swim, Drizzle teams are very viable. So just imagine for a second how it would be without the combo ban, or if Drizzle had been banned completely. You would have taken away quite a few team archetypes from the metagame, and my stance on the combo ban is still very much the same. That is that, well, if it's effective in keeping Rain in check without banning it completely, it's okay. However, there's the ethical question of whether this combo ban is going to lead down a slippery slope, and some people back then said that it was a completely useless argument, it wasn't valid, the whole slippery slope thing. Well, I'm about to be proven wrong, because just because we have a combo ban in place, there are some people who think that we need to apply another combo ban on Sandstream and Sandvale, all because of Garchomp. But that's a subject that's been beaten to death, and I'm planning on coming back to it at some point in the near future, closer to the nomination phase, so I'm not going to touch it quite yet today. But speaking of Garchomp and Sandvale, the point of those usage stats is to show that even after everything that's been said about Drizzle and Drought, Sandstorm is still the dominant weather. Of course, as I said, you need to put an asterisk next to Rain, since its use has been restricted a little. And also in the case of Drought, it lost one of its best abusers in the form of Blaziken last month. Or no, it was at the end of the month of March, so whatever. Doesn't really matter either way. But yeah, Sandstorm, still the best weather. If you look at the top 10, you got Ferrothorn, Tyranitar, Garchomp, Gliscor, Ryu-Nicholas, Excadrill, all stuff that's immune to Sandstorm. In fact, in the top 10, there are only 2 Pokemon that aren't immune to Sandstorm. Latios, who's always been a very powerful Pokemon in its own right, even if it doesn't really need weather to operate well, and Wash Rotom, which is a fantastic rain abuser. I've been talking a lot about Rotom's typing change being a huge nerf. However, in the case of the Wash form, it's been a godsend, unlike the other 4. Because electric water means that you can abuse you can abuse weather on both of your stat types, which is absolutely fantastic. And another thing that was going to be interesting to watch when it comes to those stats is to see how hard the power creep has hit those old Pokemon that didn't improve at all, such as Zapdos, Azelf, Togekiss. They have fallen off the face of the world, because most of these Pokemon that used to be comfortably overused but didn't improve much are either going to be underused / borderline, depending on how broken they are in the underused metagame, or just barely overused. This is absolutely incredible. I could hardly believe it when I saw it. And, okay, Giratina just hit level 70. Well, I'm going to pass up on Slash, obviously, but this raises another question. I don't think I want to continue with the Giratina because, well, it's going to be so far ahead of the rest of my team, and we're slowly approaching the end of the LP. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to keep it at level 70 for now, and once this battle's over, I'm going to send Cresselia in the lead for wild Pokemon battles, since, well, there are still a lot of Pokemon that are weak to Ice and Psychic in this area, so I'm going to let Cresselia fight the wild battles, and for the trainers, I'm going to give them to Zapdos just so that it at least gets to do something while the rest of my team keeps increasing in levels. And as for Heatran, well, it comes at level 50, so I guess I'm going to need to do a major catch-up job with Heatran when I actually get it. But I'd love to say we're close to getting Heatran, but you've seen it. This room is huge. We're not even halfway through yet, and we've been here for over half an hour, or maybe even 40 minutes into this room, and, yeah, so we'll just see when I get there, okay? But anyway, back to the stats. Some things that I want to point out, because it's going to become important in a bit, is that a flaw with whatever they use to compile the stats is that it also compiles empty team slots. And those empty team slots are actually compiled as missing no. So that's why you see missing no in the usage stats. And no, I'll just talk to these guys and I'll be right back because I'm getting interrupted. So I'm going to be right back in just a matter of a few seconds. Okay, I apologize for that. Didn't mean for it to happen. In fact, I wonder how this doesn't happen more often, to be honest, whenever I LP, because, well, I record a new part every couple of days, and it's very, very rarely happened that I got interrupted while I was actually recording. But, anyway, back to what I was saying. The thing about missing no earlier is that it actually appears on the list. So if you want to have the exact rankings for everything that's below missing no, you have to keep track of where missing no is on the list and increase everyone else's rank by 1. Or is it decrease? Well, the number is decreasing, but the ranking is actually improving, so, well, whatever, you get what I mean. And the reason why I'm mentioning this is because there were a few things of interest below missing no. Some of you may have been surprised when it was first announced that Kyurem wasn't going to be Uber right off the bat. And looking at the stats, well, it's not a surprise anymore, but in fact what surprises me is that it's not even going to be overused, not even close. Do you want to guess where it's ranked? 60, 70, 80? How about 101st? 101st! We're talking about the Pokemon with the highest stat total in Standard. Slacking and Regigigas notwithstanding, because those guys have debilitating abilities. But, wow. Just wow. Base stat total of 660. And it fails to be top 100 in overused. Not in Ubers, in overused. I had a lot of trouble believing that, actually, and I sort of still do because, well, I guess it's definite proof that stats do not mean everything. But still, is it because people are just plain unaware that you can use Kyurem in Standard since, well, it's a version mascot, or it's gonna be at some point in the future? But yeah, definite proof that stats do not mean everything. And another thing to look out for is that in Generations 3 and 4, Wobbuffet was actually Uber. So it was unbanned in Generation 5, and I personally expected it to be a huge threat in Generation 5, considering that, well, it usually happens to whatever gets demoted from the Uber tier. Well, was I ever wrong? Wobbuffet ended up being 140th. 140th for a thing that had no counters last generation. Well, I guess that's the power creep talking, because as I said, everything hits so much harder this generation that Wobbuffet is a lot easier to kill before it can actually do anything, and that's probably why people don't bother using it anymore. Either that, or it simply has to do with the fact that, once again, they aren't really reminded that you can use it because it's been banned for 8 years, but still, I expected it to do a lot better than 140th, so yeah. And by the way, Mew is, I don't remember the exact rank, but it's about 75th or so, and it was something else that was banned last generation and is basically pretty much a huge dud so far this generation. And before I finish, one word about Ubers. One thing that I was really looking forward to was to see how Arceus would perform, since it's the first time that we can actually see it on Smogon usage stats, because it was banned. It was banned last generation, not because it was too strong, but because Shoddy couldn't work with the EV restrictions. But now there are no EV restrictions anymore because of those feather items that you can find on the Driftvale drawbridge, among others. And those things can increase your EVs even when you're past 100, so you can max out your EVs on an Arceus with absolutely no problem. So, yeah. How did Arceus perform, you ask? Well, when I first took a look at the stats, I saw Arceus in 5th, and I was like, wait, what? 5th? Only 5th? But it was only later that I understood that they actually separated all the types for Arceus in the stats. And personally, I don't agree with that, because I consider all the forms of Arceus to be the exact same Pokemon, because basically what it does is that it changes type because of its ability, and I don't consider the forms of Arceus separate for that reason. Because, well, let's take a look at Cast Form, for example. It can change types with its ability too, but nobody considers the forms separate Pokemon. Maybe it has to do with the fact that it can change forms at will, whereas Arceus can't really change forms, because it has sort of a sticky hold effect on the plates, though. Does it even get Fling in the first place? I don't remember, because I never bothered with Fling on anything else than Gliscor, so I wouldn't be able to tell, but still, I don't consider each type of Arceus to be a different Pokemon. But when you add all the forms of Arceus together in the stats, it's actually number 1 in a landslide. Now that's more like it. I know Kyogre is beast thanks to Drizzle, but still, Arceus is and always will be Arceus. So that's going to be enough for today. Last battle for now. Next time, we're going to continue wading through this huge-ass room.